There's nothing heavier than a thought you've carried too long, especially one that was never true to begin with. Maybe you've been waking up each day with a quiet ache, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that settles in your chest like a fog. You go through the motions and everything looks normal, but something in you whispers, "This isn't how it was supposed to feel." You tell yourself you're stuck, that something's wrong with you, that maybe life passed you by while you weren't paying attention. But what if that's not true? What if you're not stuck at all? What if you're just practicing a thought that was never meant to lead you forward? The mind is a rehearsal hall. It doesn't wait for truth, it performs whatever script you hand it. And if the script says you're not enough, you always mess things up, you're too late, then that becomes the play you live inside day after day. Not because it's real, but because it's familiar. We don't repeat thoughts because they're true, we repeat them because they're practiced. Somewhere along the way you stopped questioning the voice in your head. You started mistaking repetition for reality. But repetition is not truth, it's just habit, and habits can be rewritten. So ask yourself, when did you first start rehearsing this story? Whose voice did you internalize before you ever had the chance to choose your own? Sometimes the cage isn't made of bars. It's made of beliefs you never stopped to challenge. You might think you're stuck, but stuck is just a signal, not a sentence. It's the moment when life is gently asking you to update the story, to stop echoing thoughts that keep you circling the same small room. What if the door was never locked, only your thinking was? It's not always about thinking bigger. Sometimes it's about thinking truer. It's not about forcing positivity. It's about finding honesty that sets you free. No one escapes the weight of their thoughts. We all live under the gravity of the ones we feed. But the good news is, you get to choose what you rehearse next. Start simple. Try this. Maybe I'm not broken. Maybe I'm becoming. Try this thought is old, but I am not. Try what if I can try again even here. Say it softly at first. It may feel foreign, like trying on someone else's shoes. But keep saying it. Let the new thought find its rhythm. Let it echo. Let it settle into your day like sunlight slipping through closed blinds. You are not stuck. You are rehearsing the next version of yourself. And every quiet repetition is a step forward, even if no one sees it yet. Growth is not loud. Transformation rarely announces itself. It happens in the silent practice of a new truth. So take a breath and pick a better thought to carry today. One that sees who you really are and who you're still becoming. Because you've rehearsed the wrong lines long enough. It's time to rewrite the script. There's a quiet kind of gravity in the mind. A pull not toward truth, but toward familiarity. And often the thoughts we think most are not the ones that free us, but the ones we've simply practiced the longest. What if I told you that what you believe about yourself might not be real, just repeated? Let that settle. The human mind, for all its brilliance, is also a creature of rhythm. It builds its scaffolding not on fact but on frequency. What shows up often begins to feel like truth, even if it's just noise that's been playing in the background for years. You're not good enough. You'll never get it right. You're too late. You always mess things up. Where did those lines come from? Who first whispered them to you? A teacher, a parent, your own voice after a moment of pain. Now ask this. Have you ever questioned them? The mind, like a sponge, absorbs without judgment. It doesn't ask if the words are fair or helpful. It just takes them in, and with each repetition, they become part of the script. A silent monologue that plays behind your eyes, shaping your choices, your voice, your life. You don't have to believe something for it to shape you, you just have to hear it enough. Think of a path through a forest. Walk it enough times, and it becomes a trail, not because it's the best route, but because it's the most familiar. The ground wears down, the grass doesn't grow back, and it starts to feel like the only way through, but off to the side, there's untouched space. Softer ground, a quieter route, but it's harder to find because you've never walked it. Your thoughts work the same way. What you repeat, you reinforce. What you reinforce, you begin to trust. And what you trust, you live by. So if you find yourself stuck in doubt, fear or shame, ask yourself, Is this really true or just well rehearsed? You may find that the voice you've come to believe is you, was never yours to begin with. Here's the good news. Repetition works both ways. Just as the mind absorbs the old, it can learn the new, if you give it something worth repeating. Try this. I am learning. I am not my past thoughts. I can build new beliefs, gently and slowly. You don't have to force a grand change overnight. It's not about shouting affirmations into the mirror until something shifts. It's about choosing one kinder thought, and saying it again tomorrow. Like learning a song, note by note. Like teaching your hands a new craft. The mind needs practice. Soft, daily practice. Rehearse something kinder, something truer, something that helps you breathe a little deeper when you think it. Will it feel unnatural at first? Probably, just like any new movement does. But the mind will learn, because it always does. That's its beauty, and its burden. You are not what others once said about you. You are not the voice of your worst moment. You are what you practice, and that practice is still in your hands. So ask yourself as you move through your day, what am I repeating right now? And is it something I want to believe? Because belief is not built by force. It is built by rhythm, and the rhythm is yours to change. Stuckness is rarely a physical thing. More often, it's a quiet story playing behind the eyes. So old, so familiar, that you forget it's even a story at all. It feels like a wall. It sounds like a dead end, but it's really just a line you've been reciting, a belief so well rehearsed, it's come to feel like fact. I can't. I'm too late. This is just how I am. Nothing ever changes. These aren't truths. They're echoes. And most of them were written long before you had the wisdom to question them. We don't get stuck because there's no way forward. We get stuck because we've forgotten how to turn and ask, is this still the story I want to live in? Life is a novel we write in invisible ink. But here's the catch. The first draft often comes from somewhere else, from parents, teachers, culture, comparison, from moments where we were hurt, or misunderstood, or simply too young to know better. We pick up lines we didn't write, and call them reality, and then, we build our lives around them. You begin to shrink to fit the shape of the story. You turn down opportunities that don't match the character you think you are. You stay in places that drain you, because the story says this is all you deserve. And you call it truth. You call it you. But what if you paused long enough to look closer? What if the door was never locked, only painted to look like a wall? You're not stuck. You're standing inside a script. And every script can be edited, but only when seen. So the question becomes, what story am I still living, that no longer fits who I am becoming? Maybe the story told you that you always mess things up, that you're too sensitive, that you're not smart enough, that success isn't for people like you. But how long do you want to carry that? How long do you want to wear a coat that no longer fits your frame? There's power in realizing that you are the narrator now. You, not the voice from years ago, not the version of you frozen in a single hard season. You, right here, with enough breath left to rewrite a page. Of course, rewriting isn't always glamorous. It takes honesty, stillness, the willingness to step back from the noise and sit with the story you've been silently performing. It's uncomfortable at first. You may feel disoriented, like waking up from a long dream. But there's beauty in that discomfort. It means the story is loosening its grip. It means something real is surfacing. Ask who told me this was the end. Who benefits from me believing I can't change? What if I've simply outgrown the version of me this story was built for? Stuckness is not failure. It's a signal from your deeper self saying, it's time to question what you've accepted. It's not about erasing the past. It's about deciding which parts deserve to stay in the next chapter. So take out your mental pen, get curious, get quiet. Ask yourself if the life you're living was built on truth, or just repetition, and then gently begin to reframe. Instead of I've always been this way, try, this is how I've been, and I'm learning who I want to be. Instead of I can't do this, try, I haven't done it yet. Instead of "this is the end of the road," try "this is the end of an old chapter and the beginning of my own." Because you're not broken, you're become. And the moment you challenge the old story, you give yourself permission to step into a truer one. That's not stuck. That's movement, even if no one else can see it yet. The mind is not a judge. It's a stage. It doesn't ask, "Is this thought good for me?" It simply asks, "What's my next line?" And then it performs, again and again, with quiet devotion. It repeats what it's been taught, rehearsing words, images, fears, and doubts, as if they were facts written in stone. Not because they're true, but because they're familiar. If you give the mind cruelty, it will rehearse cruelty. If you give it shame, it will echo shame. If you feed it fear, it will prepare for disaster. The mind doesn't rebel, it follows. It doesn't resist, it absorbs. This is what makes it powerful and dangerous. It is, after all, the world's most loyal actor, becoming whatever role you hand it, no matter how small. So many of us walk through life reciting scripts we never wrote, old lines from old wounds, painful rehearsals from moments when we were scared, embarrassed, or made to feel less than enough. We repeat them until they sound like truth. "I'm not worthy. People always leave. I never get it right." But these are not truths. They are performances, and most of them are long overdue for a rewrite. If the mind rehearses whatever it's given, then the real power lies in what you give it next. Try kindness, not the loud performative kind, but the soft, unseen variety, the kind that speaks in a whisper when the old script shouts. Try honesty, not brutal honesty, but gentle honesty, the kind that admits, "I'm struggling," and follows it with, "but I am learning." Try newness, not in grand declarations, but in small phrases you've never dared to say aloud. "I am still growing. This mistake does not define me. I can begin again." You don't have to shout these things. You only have to whisper them, because repetition, not volume, is what rewires the mind. Rehearse love like you once rehearsed fear. Practice compassion the way you used to practice criticism. Let the new lines feel foreign at first. Let them wobble in your voice. That's how learning works. You are not weak for needing to repeat something kind. You are wise, because the harsh thoughts, they've had years of practice. The kind ones, they're just starting to speak, and they need your help to grow strong. What would your life look like if you gave your mind better lines to follow? What if your daily thoughts were not automatic, but intentional? What if, each morning, you handed your mind a note that simply said, "Let's try kindness today. Let's be gentle with what hurts." We spend so much time rehearsing pain we never want to feel again. But what about rehearsing peace we've never fully let ourselves believe? The truth is this: your mind is not the enemy. It's a brilliant actor, loyal to its script. So give it one worth performing, one that says, "I'm allowed to change. I can be new. My voice matters. I am not the thought. I am the thinker." These are not affirmations to recite for show. These are seeds. Say them slowly. Say them often. Say them especially when the old lines return. Because they will, but so will you. Again and again, you will return to the stage of your life, holding a script. Make sure it's one you chose, not one that was handed to you in a moment of pain, because the mind rehearses whatever it's given. So give it something that makes you feel whole again. Some thoughts don't scream, they whisper, and it's the whispering ones that often shape us the most. Not because they're true, but because we've let them settle in, day after day, like dust gathering on a windowsill. They don't ask for permission, they arrive quietly, and before we know it, they've built a home inside us. "I'm not enough. I always ruin things. No one really sees me. This is just who I am." They begin as reactions. They become beliefs. And eventually they feel like identity. But here's the quiet truth most of us were never taught. Old thoughts are not life sentences. They are not final. They are not fixed. They are habits, mental reflexes. And like any habit, they can be unlearned. The human brain is beautifully efficient. It conserves energy by creating shortcuts, pathways of repetition that allow us to move through the world without thinking too much. It's how we remember how to tie our shoes or drive the same road home without needing a map. But the mind doesn't just form habits in action, it forms them in emotion too. Think a thought often enough, especially in moments of pain or fear, and the brain builds a well-worn trail for it. It becomes easy to access, automatic. You don't even need a trigger anymore, it just arrives like muscle memory. But here's the key. Just because a thought shows up quickly, doesn't mean it belongs. We confuse speed with truth. We confuse familiarity with fact. We assume that if a thought keeps showing up, it must be telling us something important. But maybe it's just well practiced, not wise. You don't unlearn old thoughts by fighting them. You unlearn them by recognizing them and gently choosing something different. Imagine you're standing at a crossroads in your mind. One path is paved and smooth. You've walked it for years. The other is overgrown, awkward, uncertain. The first is the old thought. The second is the new possibility. Which one do you take? Most days you'll take the paved one without even realizing it. That's how habits work. But with awareness, with a deep breath, you can pause. You can ask, do I want to go where this thought always takes me? Because every thought leads somewhere. To shame, or to grace, to paralysis, or to hope, to the past, or to possibility. And your power lies not in controlling which thoughts appear, but in choosing which ones you walk with. Unlearning is not an act of violence. It's an act of love. It's sitting beside an old thought, looking it in the eye and saying, I know you were trying to protect me once, but I don't need you anymore. You don't have to hate your old thoughts. You just have to stop following them. It may feel strange at first, like walking barefoot after years in heavy boots. You might stumble, you might miss the comfort of your old pain. But keep going, keep choosing, keep practicing the new. Say, I don't have to believe this just because it's familiar. Say, this thought is old, but I am not. Say, I am more than my patterns. I am the person who chooses what to keep and what to outgrow. Freedom doesn't come all at once. It comes in layers, in quiet moments of awareness, in saying no thank you to the thought that once defined you, and yes to the truth you're still learning how to live, because you are not a prisoner of your past conclusions. You are a student of your present choice, and choice, my friend, is the beginning of every unlearning. We love the idea of the breakthrough, that one moment where everything shifts, the bolt of lightning, the awakening, the big win, the sudden clarity, the applause after years of silence. But most lives don't change in one sweeping moment. Most lives change in the practice that happens quietly, before anyone notices. The truth is, your future isn't waiting for a dramatic breakthrough. It's waiting for a better rehearsal, because that's what life is. A daily stage where the mind performs what it was handed yesterday. And if yesterday was full of self-doubt, smallness, or hesitation, today might look like that too, unless you choose to rehearse something different. There's nothing wrong with hoping for a turning point, but waiting for one. That's where we lose ourselves. We sit and wait for something big enough to shake us free. A job offer, a compliment, a sign, a rescue. But sometimes, the most powerful change isn't something that happens to you, it's something you practice into being. The future you want isn't hiding behind a curtain. It's right here, in this moment, asking, what script are you rehearsing today? Rehearsal doesn't mean pretending, it means preparing. Preparing your mind to believe in something better before the evidence shows up. Athletes rehearse before the championship. Musicians rehearse before the concert. So why shouldn't we rehearse the thoughts that will shape the next chapter of our lives? You want confidence? Don't wait for someone to hand it to you. Practice standing taller in the room. You want peace? Don't wait for the chaos to leave. Practice breathing slowly through the noise. You want love? Don't wait for someone else to offer it. Practice giving it to yourself in the quiet moments no one sees. It may feel small, but it's not. Every better thought is a seed. Every better action is a step, and over time rehearsals become reality. The future doesn't rise out of nowhere, it gathers slowly, built by every moment you choose to believe in something kinder, something clearer, something just a little more true. Ask yourself, what have I been rehearsing lately? Self-doubt, shame, hesitation? Or have I been practicing presence, bravery, compassion? What you repeat, you become. And if you don't like what life is reflecting back to you, maybe it's time to give your mind new lines to follow. You don't have to believe them perfectly, just enough to try, just enough to whisper, "This is the new direction now." It won't always be graceful. You might stumble through the new script, you'll forget some lines, you'll fall back into the old rhythm. But that's part of it. That's rehearsal. And rehearsal is where real change happens. Not on stage, not under the spotlight, but in the practice room. The quiet morning, the late night walk, the moment you choose to respond instead of react. You don't have to wait for clarity to come crashing through the clouds. You can build it, line by line, in the way you show up to your own mind each day. Let go of the myth that change has to be sudden and loud. Let go of the pressure to have it all figured out before you start. You don't need a revelation, you need a rhythm. So show up, speak better thoughts aloud, try better movements, practice better choices, and one day, maybe soon, maybe quietly, you'll look up and realize you've become someone who doesn't need a breakthrough anymore, because you've built the future one honest rehearsal at a time. Real freedom doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't arrive wrapped in gold or accompanied by thunder. It doesn't always announce itself with clarity or grand declarations. More often it comes softly. A quiet voice, a new sentence, a gentle shift in direction, almost imperceptible at first. Just one new thought, whispered not once but again, and again, and again. That's where the story begins. You don't need a revolution in your life. You need a small truth that dares to stay long enough to feel real. Maybe I'm not broken. Maybe I'm allowed to want more. Maybe I can come back from this. It sounds too simple, doesn't it? We expect freedom to be loud. But real freedom is the kind that sneaks into your bones without a sound. It settles inside you quietly, like light spilling across a dark room, not because it forces anything, but because it remembers what was always there beneath the noise. We're not taught this kind of freedom. We're taught to chase it, to run until we earn it, to attach it to milestones, money, permission from the outside world. But what if it doesn't work that way? What if the cage isn't built of bars but beliefs? What if the lock isn't on the door, it's in the mind? You see, most of us live inside borrowed thoughts, hand-me-down beliefs, old echoes that no longer serve the person we've become. And when we try to grow, we bump up against them, not because we're trapped, but because we haven't learned to question the script. Here's what changes that. One new thought, spoken with kindness, repeated with care, held long enough to become familiar, then trusted, then home. We underestimate the power of gentle repetition, but the mind doesn't absorb truth through volume. It absorbs it through rhythm. And whatever you say often enough becomes the voice your heart starts to believe. So what do you want that voice to sound like? Wouldn't it be something if the voice in your head was more like a friend than a critic? If it reminded you of your courage instead of your flaws, if it let you rest instead of run? This isn't fantasy. It's It begins when you dare to choose a better sentence. One rooted not in delusion, but in quiet truth. Not in hype, but in healing. It doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be yours. Try this. I can trust my becoming. Or I'm learning to see myself more clearly. Or simply, I'm allowed to feel free. Even here, you may not believe it fully the first time. That's okay. It's not belief that creates repetition. It's repetition that creates belief. Let the new thought echo. Let it show up when the old one tries to return. Let it speak softly, until softness becomes your new strength. Let it stay. Freedom isn't an escape, it's a return to who you were before the fear, before the noise, before the script that made you shrink. And returning takes time, patience, practice, love. But you are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not too broken. You are one new thought away from remembering who you've always been. So whisper it again, and again tomorrow, and again when the old thought knocks, because the mind will follow whatever you feed it, and the soul will awaken to whatever you welcome home. Freedom doesn't arrive all at once. It begins with one new thought.